Hi guys, it's Wade McMaster here. Got another video for you today. I'm just going to be talking about if you're freelancing, are you charging enough for your hourly rate? Now, I've come across this scenario a few times just to address basically where I'm coming from. I meet a lot of friends and that who do a bit of freelance work on the side, or they're looking at starting their own business, and quite often they look at their hourly rate as what they get at used to get at their job, and they apply that maybe slightly more to their freelancing job. So say they're making $25 or $30 an hour at a job, they then go and apply that, or maybe an extra $5 or $10 an hour to what they charge as a freelancer. Now, I want to talk about why that's a bad idea, because what happens is a lot of people get this idea that it's actually a lot, when you charge a lot more, that you're making a lot more money, and that's just not necessarily the case. Now, you could be charging, say, double that amount. Let's say you're charging $75 an hour. When I first started my freelance business a few years ago, I would go to places and I would quite often meet people I knew and say, I'd say my hourly rate is so much, might be $75, $80 an hour sort of thing, and they'd be like, oh wow, that's awesome, because I work here for this amount of time and you get this much per hour. You basically you're earning all this extra money. It's just, wow, that's fantastic. And it's just, you sort of have to explain to them without getting into it with too much depth that it's not quite like you're working a 40-hour week at 70 or 80 bucks an hour. It's just not quite that simple. So I just thought I wanted to talk to you about if you're going to start a freelancing business, this is not a topic I talk about a hell of a lot, but I have been freelancing and working from home for myself for a few years now. I've got to the point where my wife has now quit her job and she was working for me. Now she's basically a full-time mum, and you just got to learn that it's not quite that simple, and you're better off trying to charge that higher rate just so you can still make good money for your efforts. Now, the reason this happens, a lot of people like to try and undercut their competition, or make sure they don't want to stray too far away, because they think the lower the rate, that the better the work they're going to get. So before I even talk about how it affects you, there's this little thing called the perception of value. So if people are going to come to you and you say, I charge $30 an hour, then your service comes across as a cheap option, yeah, but it also comes across as being, well, it's not that high level of service. Even if you're a high level designer, photographer, whatever it is, if you're really good at what you do and you charge less than what you're worth, your work comes across as less valuable. And that's something that can be very powerful if you learn to really leverage and go, hey, look, this is my rate. It's here, not here. It's $90, $100 an hour, or even more, $150 an hour, not $30 or $40 an hour. And people start to realize that you're serious, and they come to you and they expect quality. They even start to trust you a bit more. And I find that since I charged higher rates over the years, that people tend to trust my judgment a lot more when I'm doing work for them. So even from a business perspective, there is that, in the sense that people do take you more seriously when they're customers. But the one thing I want to talk about mainly is that you're not just, when you're working for someone else, you're walking into your job in the morning, your payday starts, the clock's ticking, and you're getting paid while you're working. Sometimes during some of those small breaks, depending on what country you're in, you might stop, have a break at lunchtime, come back, and the clock keeps ticking. You get paid for the full day. If you're doing 40 hours a week at $25 an hour, then you're getting your $1,000 a week, or whatever it ends up being. But when you're freelancing from home, that's not quite that simple. Whether you're freelancing from home or elsewhere, most freelancers do work from home. When you're working, quite often there's a lot of unpaid tasks. There might be meetings, emails, phone calls, things throughout the day that take up your time that you don't get paid for. Now, you might think that sounds like a small amount, but some phone calls I've had can last 25 minutes up to an hour just discussing a job, whether it be a website or something like that, before I even get started. And now you can either charge for that time, or quite often it's prospecting for a sale, and if you don't get it, you can't send a bill if they've decided not to go for you, because it's just, in most cases, that's just not the way it works. So one of those things you've got to realize is that there's a certain amount of your day taken up on tasks, maybe organizing yourself, even possibly doing your books. You don't get paid for that. The other thing too is there's also benefits when you're a wage earner that you don't get as a freelancer. Like, you might get sick days, you get holiday pay, public holidays, that sort of thing. When you're a freelancer, if you decide to take holidays, if you get sick, take the day off, or even take public holidays off, then you're not getting paid for your time. You've just taken that time off unpaid. So that's another percentage of your money that quickly disappears. Now, if you keep adding to this, it also works out in a sense that if you have a break in the middle of the day, maybe you have to go off, maybe you have to go to the bathroom, or if you go to have a quick break for 20 minutes and eat something. As a wage earner, I think in Australia, quite often you get paid for your little 20-minute breaks. As a freelancer, you don't get paid. And there's just so many things throughout the day, and they really add up, that really cut into your earning capacity, which is why instead of just charging what you would get at a job, you do need to start going, okay, I've got to charge higher, so that way you start to filter out those bits and pieces that take up time during your day. So the other thing is sometimes you get slow payers, things like that, so you're not always getting all the money you charge out. So all these things add up. Now, when you consider the fact that if a third of your day is taken up doing things that you don't get paid for, you've really got to start to add things up. Let's say I made $25 an hour as a wage earner, but I'm charging $50 an hour. Straight away, $40, 40 hours in a week at $25 is $1,000. If I'm charging $50, then hypothetically working 40 hours means $2,000, right? But if a third of that time is spent doing things that I don't get paid for, then all of a sudden I've lost $666. I'm back down to $1,300 already, just like that. And when you start throwing in sick days, holidays, that sort of thing, you're cutting it down just a little bit more over the long term. But before you worry about that, what you're charging out, all the things that you're doing that are not being charged out, you've also got costs. For example, I have a lot of services I pay for, like I have a Dropbox account, I have a lot of bits and pieces that I use in my business, and sometimes my costs are at least $100 on a very thin month, but some months are even more than that. Some months they're $400 or $500 if I have an annual bill come through, such as web hosting and things like that. So quite often you're getting these big bills coming out, and so let's say we're down to $1,300 a week and I'm charging double on the hourly rate. If I'm losing on average $50 to $100 a week, let's call it 100, then you're down to $1,200, which is another step down. And then on top of that, the other thing is when you're working at a job, so straight away we're down to $1,200 just from the fact that you can't quite charge out all your time and that you're going to have costs involved. The other thing is that it's sort of like your maximum earning capacity. When you were at a job, as long as you're there, you're getting paid. Sometimes you're not there, you're still getting paid. But as long as you're there doing your 40 hours, you get paid that 40 hours. But what happens if work starts to dry up? If you have 40 hours available to you, some people will work longer, but when you start to have a lot of things creep into your life, and these are not negative things, but you might be busy with family, you might have other commitments, sometimes your time is stuck in that 40-hour slot because that's all you can really afford to give yourself. But if you don't quite get enough work, your ability to turn over and charge comes down. You might only be able to do 25 hours of work in that 1 week that you can charge, because that might be all the work that you have. So there's that issue as well. Whereas if you've got a full week's worth of work and you're still doing 40 hours and charging by the hour, then that's only a maximum capacity. There's a ceiling to it. You can only go so far. So straight away there's a lot of reasons why you really need to focus. So if I have a few quiet patches throughout the year and that evens out to about $150 a week, straight away we're down to $1,100 again. So by doubling my hourly rate, in this particular scenario, I've earned the same amount of money as at my job, which is not good, because you do want to be earning more than your job, because you do need to continue to invest in your business and grow. And what's the point of stepping out starting a business if you're just going to earn the same amount? Because I mean, there is a lot of lifestyle benefits to stepping out freelancing, but you really need that security of a little bit more to make sure that you can weather the hard times, and when costs pop up, you can still do what you need to do. So that's just a little bit of a thought on maybe why you should consider charging more. In my opinion, you should be looking at least double, at the very minimum, if not triple or quadruple what you would get in a job. If you're getting $25 an hour, you should consider $75 or $100 an hour as a freelancer if you really want to be serious about making this a full-time income. I have this as a full-time income, and like I said, I've gotten to a point where now my freelance business supports our entire household. So doing that has been the reason we've been able to have that option as a lifestyle, to be able to say, okay, we're going to freelance because we want certain lifestyle options. Having that hourly rate is what makes that possible, and we're still putting in the hours. It's not like we're sitting back doing hardly any work. It's still hard work. So just a thought, if you're going to freelance, really consider your hourly rate. Make sure you're charging enough. Do not get caught up in that whole cycle of keeping your rates too low to try and win the work. You can quite often start that way. I started off doing free websites and doing cheap work to get my name out there, but as soon as you feel like that traction's there, you want to start to put that up. So yeah, just a thought, guys, just something that I'd like to present to you guys, just to think about if you are going to start a freelance business. Now, if you want more videos like this about freelancing, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Also, if you are going to start a freelance business and you want to start a website, we do have a free getting started guide on my website, willbuildyourblog.com. I'll put a link to that in the description below, so that way you can log on, and it's a free email course. You sign up and I'll send you some videos on how to start a website and get your presence online from there. So other than that, thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Have a good day.